Chapter 3. The four adults watched the aisles get smaller and smaller, and inside the small cabin they'd been snuck into, Fidelius wept for his beloved queen, who would no longer have anyone to protect her. And then he turned to the unconscious Princess Celine and resolved to protect Queen Rosabelle's daughter with his life. Princess Celine didn't wake up until the following morning.
Fidelius? Where am I? Where's my mother?
She asked, as she curled up in the cot, her violet eyes wide and briefly terrified as she looked at the people jammed in the cabin. She wrapped her arms around her legs under the blanket and appeared even smaller than she was. She had to send you away, Princess. Once your powers were exposed, she knew your father would try to kill you. So, we are traveling with your dowry and money to your uncle, King Regan of Dala. He'll protect you from anyone who dares to harm you and make a betrothal for you when you are old enough. Fidelius told her as gently as he could. She swallowed and then asked softly,
Will I ever see my mama again?
Fidelius wanted to lie to her, but he couldn't, so instead he swallowed hard and then shook his head softly. Honestly, he wasn't even sure if Queen Rosabelle had survived the night after her husband had woken up from his magic-induced slumber. His heart almost broke as he watched her eyes fill full of tears. She looked away from the men and buried her face in her knees, her shoulders trembling. Fidelius didn't bother try to comfort her because he knew she would not want comfort. So instead he sent two men out to guard the door and went for a walk, leaving the princess some privacy with Helen. The delegation and their small group did not intermingle, and Celine was never seen above deck, for the captain was unaware that he housed a princess witch on the run. He was a bit surprised when Fidelius requested to get off at the first port in Westhold, when they stopped to pick up correspondence to be brought to the king. Fidelius claimed there were some errands he was running for the queen, so there were no questions. The princess was covered in a thick cloak that hid her defining features. Those eyes were a dead giveaway as they disembarked the ship. Once the exiled party from the Isles stepped off the dock into Westhold, Fidelius could finally breathe a sigh of relief. He knew he would have to buy passage on a ship to Dala, but to not let her father know where she was had become more of a priority. Fidelius had spent years in the company of King Eshek, and knew how obsessive the king could be about his lineage. He would take no chances, and something called to him like a siren on the north side of the Salt River, something that could protect the princess. Fidelius cautiously used some of the queen's coins to buy provisions. Even then, the withdrawn princess silently followed the Fidelius as he purchased horses, supplies, and they set out on a long journey. They had been several days on the road, and Celine was still withdrawn. Fidelius grew more concerned, but could only watch and hope she would recover once in Dala. Was very worried about the princess, but he was hoping once she was nestled in the bosom of her maternal family, it would turn around. It was dusk on the fourth day when they were passing a small village that Helen pleaded with Fidelius.
Let's see if they have an inn. The princess needs hot food and a bath.
She was right, but he was hesitant. For so long he had been on the Isles where magical humans were killed just for being what they were. But when his own men agreed, he consented, and they rode looking for an inn. He also knew that this was the home of the fabled Lady Nelina, who was whispered to be a sorceress. Maybe she would have something to help the princess control her powers. So, warily, he consented. Oddly enough, in the middle of the village square was a noblewoman. She stood completely straight, her hair the color of burnished silver and cut straight past her shoulders. Her eyes appeared black, but in further examination they were dark brown, and she waited until they were nearly abreast to her. She had the air of all-powerful about her. Fidelius drew his charge closer to him, his extra hand settling on his sword as they stopped several feet away from her. The village was bustling about her, and no one paid any attention to her or them. Altogether it was very suspicious, and his men drew closer to their leader and their princess, ready to battle their way out if need be. Poor Helen stayed to the back, wary as well with her hand on her small dirk.
Princess Celine, welcome to my home. I am Lady Nelina, the guardian of these lands. You and your people are welcome here.
Her voice was strong and carrying as she smiled at them all. Lady Nelina was tall and reasonably attractive, but she had a deep magnetic vibe to her that drew the eye. She walked towards the group and then reached out and touched Celine's cheek. Fidelius tried to draw the princess away, but he could not move. At the lady's touch, the child's eyes filled with tears, and some spilt.
Easy, my darling girl. You have time to heal before the others arrive,
She told her softly, and stroked her cheek softly. I beg your pardon, milady, but we are just hoping for a room for the night before we continue to the kingdom of Dala, Fidelius said warily. He had heard that this sorceress was powerful and did not want to aggravate her.
I saw you coming in my dreams, Fidelius. I knew you would arrive. I know your queen intended for you to continue to her home kingdom, but there is no one there to teach the princess how to properly use her power. Here she will be protected, and she will be provided the education she will need. I have already arranged everything with the King Regan. Her dowry will be set aside for her later years, and she will have companions her own age to grow up with. At any time as her guardians you can choose to continue to Dala. Welcome, Helen. You and your lady will have rooms in my manor house. Soon enough, Princess Celine, there will be many other children here for you to learn with. There are 2 of them here now. Does this sound acceptable to you?
Narrowing his eyes, Fidelius pressed Celine close to himself and drew his horse slightly away. I have only heard rumors of you. Who are you really? He challenged her. Nelina didn't flinch at his brisk tone or defensive words. She instead smiled and opened her hands and spread them wide.
I am a woman who has lived for centuries, a woman who would be capable of killing you without a sword, but I am also a woman bound by my word. And I give you my word, Fidelius. I swear upon the gods that you and your princess are safe. She will be understood here better than she ever would elsewhere.
The king of Dala will accept her, Fidelius bantered, and she shook her head.
He will endeavor to love her for being of his blood, but he will fear her powers if they are left unchecked. Here she will be guided into being able to use that power and not hide it with amulets.
Nelina spoke, nodding to the necklace around Celine's neck. Fidelius hesitated, warring with his desire to follow his queen's orders to the letter. However, even Helen, with her hedge witch powers, was terrified of Celine's power. If there was no one to help her in Dala, then maybe it would be best to stay here. Aye, milady. We will stay as long as the princess is accepting to this, he stated, and he looked down at his charge. Once again she said nothing, but she opened her arms and burst into hysterical tears. Lady Nelina lifted her off the horse and into her arms. She then set her down and, holding her hand, led the princess off towards what would appear to be a castle, though later they would learn that the lady called it her manor house. The men and Helen followed. Fidelius looked around the small bustling village as he followed the lady. Happy peasant children playing in the mud, smells of cooking meat, and there was reasonable activity. It looked like a normal village, not normal Isles style, but normal mainland village. Still he had sworn to his queen that he would protect her daughter above all else.
I want my mother.
Princess Celine's chin wobbled at the words she whispered to Nelina. Nelina's eyes filled with sadness, and she squeezed Celine's hand tighter for a moment.
I know, my dear princess, but in life we need to look to the future. We can't dwell in the past. Your mother would want you to learn that all you can here.
Nelina told her as they walked.
Now, princess, you are allowed to go anywhere in the village with your lady's maid, but if you want to go to beach or into the forests, I want you to take one of your guards with you. What magic is easiest for you?
Nelina asked her as they passed the last hut and came upon a lowered drawbridge over a slow-moving moat.
I don't know. Mother made me keep on my necklace.
Celine took this time to show Nelina her necklace.
And it kept me from using any magic.
Nelina touched the necklace, admiring it and the power it had withheld from the princess.
Beg pardon, milady, but fire is her strongest gift. When she lost her necklace, she nearly burnt the palace down.
Helen quietly intervened as they crossed over the lowered drawbridge, and the small group got their first glimpse of the manor house. The moat was designed from an actual river that flowed around the entire large walled manor house and down into the sea, half a mile away. The drawbridge was in good repair, noted Fidelius as their horses' hooves echoed over it, and they entered a beautiful compound. The manor house looked like a merge between a castle and a traditional manor house. Built mostly of stone, it had a large hall and kitchen, a large library. It had 3 levels. The first contained the common rooms, the second level had all the bedrooms, and the top level had all the servants' quarters. A large tower was in the back for potions and spell-casting. The yard was clean, dirt around all the barracks, but the manor the house was surrounded by stone and had flower beds lining it. The gatehouse was strong fortified, ready for a fight. All in all, it was beautifully put together and very clean.
Fidelius, and your men will be in the barracks. My headman will show you to your parts of the barracks. Now, are your men tolerable of the idea of taking shifts? Lady Nelina asked after she allowed for them to take in her home. Fidelia swallowed hard and then nodded. Aye, my lady. As long as our princess is fine with it, then Lady Nelina, we would be happy to join your ranks until our princess leaves your care. He spoke. His rumbly voice showed only a hint of happiness, but for him, it was a lot. Excellent. Then I will allow you all to settle in. I have a vault in my house where the princess's jewels and dowry can go.
Nelina motioned to a man who came over and introduced himself to the Isles men, and the horses were taken by stable hands.
Helen, you may bring your bags and come in with Celine, and I'll show you to your rooms.
Nelina, Celine, and Helen walked into the house. Helen was stunned at the beauty of the house. The front hall had several large tables for the staff and a sizable dais where the lady of the house was served. There were large fireplaces on either side of the hall, and the floor was smooth wood. The evening meal was preparing to be served. Tapestries hung from the wall, and large paintings depicted a peaceful countryside scene hung from the walls. They walked up a vast staircase and turned into a long corridor with deep rugs. Nelina stopped at an open door that they looked in and smiled as two young children looked up. One was a young boy with black hair and eyes of blue, dressed in older but serviceable colors. Same with the younger girl. The girl had long black hair and dreads. Her skin was black as could be, and her eyes looked so deep they didn't seem to end. The boy observed them a bit heftily, but the girl smiled easily at them, her teeth flashing bright in her skin.
Yes. Princess Celine, these are two children who are going to be learning with you. This is Niall and Aubrey. Niall, Aubrey, this is Princess Celine.
Nelina made the introductions, and the children observed each other cautiously.
Hello, it's a pleasure to meet you, Princess.
Aubrey made the first move, and Celine smiled shyly at her.
Call me Celine. I hate being called Princess or Lady.
She spoke softly. Niall grinned cheekily at her.
I can't call you Princess?
He taunted her. Helen sucked in her breath, waiting for the princess to get angry, but Celine merely observed the boy.
Well, what is your lineage?
She asked him sweetly. He laughed outright.
I have none. I'm a waif. If you call me Princess, then I get to call you waif,
Celine informed him. He burst out laughing at her cheekiness. Lady Nelina smiled brightly, pleased at this first interaction, no matter how inappropriate.
Well, if you like, Celine, you can stay and visit with Niall and Aubrey while I show Helen to your rooms. Dinner is going to be ready in a few hours. Aubrey, can you show Celine to her rooms later? She'll be staying in the rooms beside yours.
Nelina offered, showing Helen out as Celine walked into the room and climbed up on the bed beside Aubrey.
So, what do you find easiest to do? Niall asked. Aubrey is just good at everything, and I read the stars mostly. I'm really strong with fire, apparently. I'm not allowed to practice. My father burnt to death every magic wielder in our kingdom, and my mother kept my power hidden with an enchanted necklace. When my stupid brother ripped my necklace off, I almost burnt down the hall in our castle and then knocked out my father, my brothers, and all the guard out cold.
She explained with a shrug. Aubrey and Niall's jaws dropped open.
That's pretty awesome. Have you practiced on your own yet?
Aubrey asked as she stretched out. Celine sighed in envy as Aubrey stretched her pants-clad legs in front of her.
I wish that I had pants,
Celine stated as she looked down at her own travel-worn dress.
Oh, Nelina will have the seamstresses make you some. We have sword training as well as mace, axe, bow, and riding. We can't do it in dresses,
Aubrey stated with a shrug, and Celine perked up, excitement flashing on her face.
Cool, I've never done any of that before,
Celine shivered, with happiness. Niall grinned at her, and he stood up and motioned at them.
Come on, we can show you around everywhere,
he said. The two girls climbed over the bed, and the three children set off. They showed Celine every room except Nelina's private quarters. There were 10 bedrooms and 6 garderobes. Each room was lavishly decorated, but that was no interest to them. They dragged her outside to explore the rest of the manor, out of view of the main gate leading to the village, were the guard barracks and the stables. Gardens came across the back of the castle, and a private small gate led out to the ocean, as Niall had discovered within his first week in the manor.